it's just so important to be educated and go for it. Like, totally go for it. No excuses. And of course, I grew up in the 70s where things were a bit different. So you're told, you know, if you're black, you got to work 3 times harder. And so I did. So I had all of this stuff that I think left me in good stead. I was always one of those dreamers. I was one of those kids that didn't have friends. I was always a bit of a dream. I always dreamed of inventing something. Everyone's dream was to come to London. And everyone's dream was to be rich. So as a little small kid, he must have been about 7. He just had this dream and never let it go.
Yeah, he had the vision.
He had the vision, and he was a hard worker. Like, even though the world's changed and it's probably a much fairer than it was, I have this sense of work hard. So yeah, it definitely came from my parents. Entrepreneurialism, but from a creative point of view, because I recognised I had the talent with my brother to create a product that could sell.
Came across as a genuine, caring, stand-up, no bullshit type of character. That's what I saw, and now I'm meeting you in real life, and it's exactly the same now.
It's who I am, yeah.
As I saw you there. Yeah. You were genuine throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
One word to describe how you're feeling right now. Welcome to another episode of the Dealmaker podcast. Are you somebody that wants more out of life? Do you want to go to that next level? Well, today I am joined by a very special guest, Tre from the Apprentice, made it into the final 5. And we are going to take you behind the curtain now, and we're going to share with you some tips and tricks and exactly what you need to do in today's world to go out there and be a huge success. Tre, welcome to the studio.
Yes, brother. Good to be here.
Man, you have just had a whirlwind take place over the last few weeks. One word to describe how you're feeling right now.
Grateful.
Excellent.
Yeah, just
Love
grateful.
That. Nice.
Do you know what? And it would be easy for me and for anyone that knows me to think, okay, Tre's been a band, he's had success before, top 10 record, all that kind of stuff. I do not take this sort of stuff for granted. Like, I am grateful.
Wow.
Like, for so many reasons. Obviously grateful for the opportunity to be in front of one of my childhood heroes. Lord Sugar's like, I'm old enough to have known his whole journey, and he's one of my biggest heroes. Always been 2 of them in terms of UK entrepreneurs, Lord Sugar, Richard Branson. Wow. So to be sat in front of Lord Sugar was just like, I'm grateful for that. Moment. Yeah, grateful. And everyone else was a bit terrified. But when I saw him walking, I'm like, it's almost like looking at my dad or something. I'm like, just grateful. But not only that, I wasn't expecting the response that I get every single day. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think a younger me would have maybe seen it from a slightly more ego point of view. Oh, I'm popular. People like me, blah, blah. But the older me just feels grateful. Grateful.
I've got to say, what I saw of you on The Apprentice, you came across as a genuine, caring, stand-up, no bullshit type of character. That's what I saw, and now I'm meeting you in real life, and it's exactly the same now.
It's who I am,
as I saw you there.
Yeah.
So from what I could see, you were genuine throughout the whole process.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the process in the next few minutes. But look, let's just take us back to where this all began. Did you know you was going to be an entrepreneur? Did you have a spark for business at a young age? So when did this start? What happened? And tell us about maybe one of your first experiences as an entrepreneur.
So for me, I was going to be an entrepreneur from the minute I left my mum's womb, like, because straight away, I mean, I'm Nigerian. I don't know if you know anything about Nigerian culture, but I'm Igbo Nigerian, and our cultures were known as traders. So it's something that you just have to do, you know. And again, being Nigerian, education is very important. I was beaten as a kid, and it sounds horrific when I say that, but from our culture, it's just so important to be educated and go for it. Like, totally go for it. No excuses. And of course, I grew up in the 70s where things were a bit different. So you're told, you know, if you're black, you got to work 3 times harder. And so I did. So I had all of this stuff that I think left me in good stead. You know, the cultural background, but a pragmatic sense of you might have to work harder than everyone else in order to make it. And I love that, because I still do. Even though the world's changed and it's probably a much fairer than it was, I have this sense of work hard. So yeah, it definitely came from my parents. Came from my culture, my parents. Like, I've just got to go and create something for myself.
So would you say your parents, your mum and dad, were they quite a big role model to you?
Massive,
growing up? And what were some of the other values that they installed into you?
I mean, definitely a sense of resilience. I mean, I'll tell you a bit about my dad's story. So my dad grew up in rural Nigeria. You know, I always say this story. I only lost one brother, my brother Ashley. He lost 7 siblings growing up in Nigeria. I mean, that level of poverty, like, we can't even imagine over here. He survived because they took him from one village to a neighbouring village. And in that village, I guess maybe because he was quite small in stature, he didn't have his mum and dad with him, brother and sisters are all gone. he had his dream, I guess, was to be autonomous. For him as a child, it looked like, I'm going to be rich. You know, when you're a kid, if I'm rich, then no one's going to mess me about. So he had this dream growing up in Nigeria, in a neighbouring village from his own. And every time like a plane would go over the school, I always tell this story because I love it. Every time a plane would go over the village, it was 1950, so it was quite a rare thing. The whole school would come out because it was an occasion. And he would point at the plane and say, one day I'm going to be on the white man's plane. I'm coming to London. I'm going to be rich. Because for every Nigerian, obviously back then, it's a British colony, everyone's dream was to come to London. And everyone's dream was to be rich. So as a little small kid, he must have been about 7. He just had this dream and never let it go.
Yeah, he had the vision.
He had the vision, and he was a hard worker. Like any little money he would earn, it sounds so sad to say because this level of poverty we're talking about. You know, you get rice sackcloths, big cloths of rice. He would take that cloth, go to a tailor and say to the tailor, make clothes out of it. That's poor, isn't it?
Really, yeah.
But he was still enterprising enough to work for himself with no mum or dad. He had extended family to be able to look after himself. And he just got the bug. He excelled in school. I mean, smashed it in school. Eventually left the village, went to Lagos, the capital of Nigeria at the time, got a job in a bank or something. I can't remember what he did. And from there came to London because everyone was coming just after the Windrush days, 1961. Came to London, ended up in Notting Hill, which is a horrific ghetto. I don't know if you know Notting Hill, right? Everyone thinks Notting Hill's posh, but back then it was a ghetto. And he just got a bug of property.
Wow.
Don't know where it came from,
he
really.
became a property investor.
Yeah, he bought the property we lived in, which was mad because everyone at the time was saying, get a free council house. Like, what are you doing? Are you stupid? Why are you buying this old, horrible building? Like, it's a typical, Victorian 4-story house, which we still own to this day, which is where I live. And he just got this idea of buying this building because he used to live in one room with my mum and had children in one room. He went from one room to buying the house. It was a landlord that helped him to buy the house. And he just kept buying property.
Wow, great.
So it was just literally in my genes.
So a real hero for you. And a massive inspiration, made a big difference in your life. So, going through school, after school, what happened? Because obviously you was in music for quite some time.
So
talk us through that part of your
So school for me was a bit challenging because I was always one of those dreamers. I was one of those kids that didn't have friends. I was always a bit of a dreamer. I always dreamed of inventing something, or I was obsessed with encyclopedias. I don't know if you remember the red Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
You're showing your age, aren't you? Bloody hell.
I'm just below you, mate. Yes.
Yeah, a little bit below. So I always had the dream for some reason of being in the encyclopedias because I never saw anyone that looked like me. And there was something, I was a strange kid. I was obsessed with legacy as a small kid. Like, I think it was because I grew up quite Catholic, but at the same time I was really into science. I had this weird thing in my head that I couldn't quite reconcile between this Catholic upbringing of heaven and hell. It sounds weird when I'm saying this, right? But bear with me. Heaven and hell versus Darwin and you're just going to go. So I had this sense of, I want to do something that if I died or something, I would live on. I had this weird thing as a kid. Don't ask me why. But I really wanted to live on because I'm reading about all of these heroes in these encyclopedias and I thought, well, if I'm reading about them, they're still here with us. I had this weird thing. Anyway, this came back to bite me in the bottom, right? So age 15, I had the appendicitis, basically. I was rushed to hospital, which went fine. And during recovery, I was given a drug called Stemetil. And this drug caused me to go paralysed. And when I say paralysed, it's actually worse than that. It was like rigor mortis. Like your eyes roll back in your head and you can see the wall behind you and you're stiff, right? Ooh. And in that moment, I thought, this is an absolute nightmare. But they gave me an antidote. I came out of that. But about an hour later, I went right back into it and I thought, I'm actually going to die. And because as a kid, I always had this mad fascination with legacy. And there was something that happened to my brain where my brain almost disassociated me from it. So when they gave me the antidote again and I came out of it, my life was never the same. It's like in that moment, I changed. Wow. Yeah. I had a condition called derealization, I had a condition called tinnitus, and I had head pressure, but I didn't know what any of them were. So it's really weird when I look at my journey, like as an entrepreneur, as a dreamer, because us entrepreneurs are dreamers, right? That shock, the interruption, it had such a profound effect on me. Because on one hand, I thought, I don't know what's wrong with me now, I'm unwell, what am I going to do about it? But I had to carry on, and I had this sense of legacy is even more important to me now because I don't know if I'm going to be able to survive. But on the other hand, it was almost like I was experiencing in a way what my dad had experienced because this is like turmoil, this is pain. I'm going to have to overcome it. This hurdle, yeah. So in hindsight, it was the best thing that happened to me, but at the time it was horrific.
And how old were you at this point?
15.
Wow. So
yeah,
scary,
February 1990.
Really scary thing
15,
to go
through. Yeah.
Your whole life ahead of you, and then you've got these conditions which no one knows what to do about.
And no one knew. And I was in and out of hospital, went to saw doctors, nobody knew what to do, and eventually I just had to crack on. And how I cracked on was like, oh, well, if it gets really, really bad, I can jump off a building. And when I tell that story, people think it's horrific, but it's not the same as being like suicidal. It's more pragmatic because all my health issues were getting worse. I was like, nothing I can do about it now. But if it gets bad, at least I can jump off a building. So I had to just crack on and did all right. Went to school, did all right. University advertising. Halfway through that, had a massive hit record with Brandy and Monica, The Boys Mine. I don't know if you remember the UK garage version of that.
Probably,
you definitely would have danced that. Yeah,
I'm sure I would have done.
That was like massive, and I think in a weird way that was probably my first foray into full-on entrepreneurialism, but from a creative point of view, because I recognised I had the talent with my brother to create a product that could sell, because that vinyl was selling for between £7 and £12, and we sold probably about 50,000 of them. Yeah, not that we got the money for it. Don't get me wrong, we got ripped off. I could say that because I really don't care about getting ripped off. But that just showed me, wow, you can create something that can sell.
Yeah. Did that give you like a real boost of confidence and even more belief? That
It did, yeah, because as a kid, one of my biggest dreams was to be on Top of the Pops. That my dad's dream was to be on the white man's plane, come to London, and be rich. My dream, not as big as that, was I just wanted to be on Top of the Pops.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was. There was something about the creativity that resonated with me, probably because I grew up in Notting Hill and it's such a creative place. Probably because of the mixture of cultures as well. But it was just something about looking on the back of records. Again, it always goes back to legacy. And I was always curious about more so the people on the back of the records. Who are the musicians? Who are the writers? And I just developed a love of that. And I had a talent in it from a young age. Obviously, my mum and dad were horrified by that. Because when you're Nigerian, you do not become a musician. Because back then, it wasn't the days of Jay-Z and Rihanna's and billionaires. It was like, you're going to be a vagabond. What the hell? You got to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and that's that.
So they had their path mapped out for you, and you just
course.
go like totally against it.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's
rapper.
why I went to university. I was almost stalling for time going to university because I thought, I just need that one break. Because if I can sell records and then show my dad, because all he cared about is money, if I can show him, look, listen, we can make money in this, he's all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we did that with The Boys Mind, and 2 years later we had Body Groove.
Wow.
Made so much money, and my first thing once I made the money was property. That's why I'm glad about having my dad as a role model, because a lot of other kids like me around and doing UK garage, they went out and bought gold and champagne and the cars, all the typical stuff that you do when you're a working class lad. But for me, my first thought is when I make money, I've got to invest in property.
You know
so my parents were proud at that moment.
That's a gift really that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
It's certainly not something. I had a great family network, but they were never business minded. They never were property investors. I made a hell of a lot of money in my 20s, but I didn't make the right investments, and I did the gold and the cars, and I wasted all of that.
What was your why, if you don't mind me asking?
What
was your why?
I just had a drive from a young age that I just wanted to protect my mum. We were brought up on a rough council estate. I used to listen to my mum cry safe to sleep every night. And from a young age, it was like, I'm going to become a millionaire.
Wow.
And then I did that, but I it was like I was lost in the process. And I had all of this money, and I had great business, but I had no direction. I had no guidance. I had no real mentor next to me saying, you should put it into property.
Yeah.
Rather than just making money, you need to manage the money. You need to multiply the money. And eventually I lost the money. Luckily today I'm back on top, and
I definitely want to hear more of that story.
And it feels amazing for sure. But I
definitely want to hear that story. I tell you why. Because for me, someone almost is only successful when they've gone through what you've just said you've gone through. Do you know what I mean? Like that sort of almost like the second time in the trenches, and I'm like, you've definitely got something.
Well, I think it's important that if people are tuning into this now and they've had some type of adversity, or they're going through some shit right now and things aren't good for them, you're just one decision away, you're one product away, you're one idea away, one partner away from going down a new path. The most important thing is to keep taking massive action.
Yeah.
So for me, grew up in poverty, made a hell of a lot of money, lost my money, and through that process I became a drug addict.
Wow.
Addicted to cocaine. I was an alcoholic. It just started with my mates, a couple of little lines in the pub, couple of pints, and then before I know it, it's every single day. And at that time, Tre, I had the big house, I had the Lamborghini, I had absolutely everything you could ever wish for, but I had nothing.
Were you happy?
No, my spirit was gone, my relationships were gone. I was a lost boy, scared boy that just didn't know how to live life.
Wow.
And for me, I had to go and seek help. Luckily, it was September 25th, 2011. It was my last use up of cocaine and alcohol. I'm in my apartment. It's 6:30 in the morning. I'm on my knees like a wounded animal, and I have this vision pop up, and it's my little girl and it's my little boy, Ida and Charlie, and they scream at me, "Dad, Dad, please don't die.
Wow.
Can you stop doing drugs?" And I called my friend Will, who is part of Cocaine Anonymous, and he had been trying to reach out to me, and I called him sobbing like a baby, and I knew this was, I am going to die unless something divine steps in. And I just said, I'm willing to do whatever you ask me to do.
Wow.
And I met him the next day, and he gave me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, orange Bic highlighter pen, and we started to go through the big book. And he took me to these things called meetings with other nut jobs, alcoholics, addicts.
I've actually been to that. I had a friend that was alcoholic. So I find it fascinating.
Yeah, so we went there, and then I went on the journey, and I'm here today, 12 years, no alcohol, no cocaine.
Wow.
So, and thriving business, 47 members of staff, multi-million pound turnover, property deals, get to now hang out with great people like yourself.
Wow.
So I feel that through difficult times is where you get your biggest growth.
100%.
And you just don't know what's around the corner. And what a lot of people do is they just give up and they accept that's the way it is. And I would just urge anyone here to go, you know what, don't accept the status quo. Get around good people, hang out with people, get some ideas, and just go for it. Yeah,
absolutely. It's funny, actually, thanks for sharing that as well, because it's moving for me. That's the stories that move me more than talking about Ferraris and stuff like that. Those things are fine, but it's the stories of resilience that moves me. But I actually coined the term for that because I coach tons of people, and I call that pain juice. Now, if you notice, some of the people that have really made the biggest difference in this world have gone through pain. Whether it's your Mandelas with 25, 27 years in prison, your Oprah who was molested and went through all sorts of hell, your 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson who was shot 9 times. Like, when you look at the people that really inspire people, they've gone through that. So anyone that's going through this, listening, the hard times is what's making you. Because you noticed that, right? You had success. I had the same thing, number 3 record and lots of money and blah, blah, blah. I was miserable. I mean, fair enough, maybe understandably so because I was unwell. But I learned pretty quickly that those things don't make you happy. Like, you and I must know a lot of rich people who are miserable. Behind the scenes, they're going for what you're going, but pretending, they had no purpose, right? Yeah. But just know, if you're listening for this and you're going through those hard times, that's the bit that's going to make you welcome it.
What was it like for you, with the records, with the fame? Is that something you enjoyed at that time? Did you embrace it? Did you rebel against it? What was going on?
It's funny, because my heroes and my focus was on people on the back of records. I wasn't a big fan of fame. I just wasn't. And everyone just assumes that everyone wants to be famous, but some people don't. Yeah. Because it comes with its own headache and responsibility. So obviously I was in the band with my brother, then we had a singer as well. But the problem is with success, especially so quickly. And The Boy's Mind was our first hit record, but it was a bootleg. So we never managed to get it licensed. Body Groove was our first official record. And in a way, it was bad that it was so big, because we didn't get a chance to
build up.
Do you know what I mean? Have a number 40 record, number 22, number 16, number 4.
Mature.
It was just bam.
You're there, the top.
Oh my God. And that comes with its own issues, because I was 25. I'm not who I am now. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the mature person I am now. So when you have success like that, you're not necessarily equipped to handle it, because you've gone from being a nobody on Monday, especially that age, trying to chat up girls, for instance. And by Tuesday, everyone you're chatting up is interested, because they know who you are, and it messes with you, because you easily get into your head and think you're bigger than what you are, but you're not. You're nothing, and I like that. We are nothing, really.
We're just the same.
We're just servants. We're nothing. But when you have success like that, you can easily let it go to your head, and it could do one of two things. You have an inflated opinion of yourself, or you want to hide. Now, my brother definitely went fully into the hide category. He never wanted to be famous. Okay. But the problem is, the label wanted me, the singer, my brother, to be front of center, because we kind of looked good. They were desperate for it, and we all went along with it. But my brother hated it to the point it made him unwell. Wow. I was a bit pragmatic, thinking I'm not a fan of being famous, but let's just carry on, at least get to somewhere. Yeah. And the singer had her own ideas. So there's a lot of tension in it. So success often breeds tension, but at the same time, you're trying to show a brave face to everyone. but it isn't what it seems. And not only that, it's the music business. I mean, it's one track, great, woo, you're successful. You know, the next month you're back to being broke again.
Yeah.
So you got all of this stuff going on. So it wasn't ever something where I thought, I want to be famous, because fame seemed like it came with a heavy burden. You're not left alone. Everyone knows you. People assume stuff about you. Plus, not only that, I generally think fame amplifies the core of who you are. And at that time, I was a broken, scared, sick young man. So in a way, I'm then thinking, I've got to then deal with this. And I wasn't equipped at the time to deal with it, because I was just trying to survive day by day. So fame for me, never been into it. It's literally only now.
Yeah, what changed? Because obviously, I know you've been through some big stuff over the last few years, and then you've now just appeared on one of the biggest TV shows, and you've been catapulted again into the public eye. So what's changed? What happened before The Apprentice, and what made you go on The Apprentice?
So what changed for me was pretty much your story. Like, you're not doing what you're doing and doing this podcast and everything you've built just to make more money. You know what it's like. It's been miserable for you. You're doing it because you want to make a difference. And you know it's that feeling when you've made a difference that trumps any Bugatti, anything. You know what I mean? You can't buy that feeling of someone coming to you and saying, because of you, my life is like this. And that's what changed for me. You know, 25 years old, did Body Groove. A year later, we had Show Me the Money, which did all right. And I just got more and more sick. And it got to the point where I got so sick. You remember I said about jumping off a building? I remember DJing at a club called Sugar Hut, a bar called Sugar Hut.
In Brentwood?
No, Sugar Hut in Fulham.
Okay.
It's a little bar. I don't think it's there anymore. I remember DJing there, and they had these massive stack of speakers behind me. And by then I had quite severe tinnitus. Tinnitus was the only thing I knew what it was. Tinnitus. The derealization, this strange dream feeling, I didn't know what it was, and the head pressure, I didn't know. So I'd got so bad of all of these symptoms, thinking, I don't have tomorrow, I don't care. So I DJed this place. Part of me knew it's probably not a good idea to DJ in front of big speakers like that, but I did it anyway because I didn't care. Woke up the next day deaf. And just like you, when you had that one moment where you saw your kids, right? I had that moment where it's like, Trey, you've been saying for a long time jumping off a building. Are you going to do it? And in that moment is when you make that choice. And I remember thinking, well, I'm Catholic, so I'm screwed because I can't do that being a Catholic, right? I can't do that to my parents as well. And it's just not me. My decision to want to jump off the building was a pragmatic choice, but I loved life. So I'm like, no, I'm going to get on the internet. Right, by now it's 2008. I think I was 33. And every time I'd gone on the internet before, I never found anything. It was just a waste of my time. But I thought, I'm not getting off it until I find answers. So imagine, this is the day after I've DJed. I'm totally deaf. My tinnitus is 10 times worse. And I'm at my wit's end, like, on the internet, crying my eyes out.
Oh, my goodness.
And I remember finding a podcast from someone called Star Child or something like that. And she described the symptoms, saying, every day it feels like I'm dreaming. I was like, bingo.
Oh, you're there.
Because I finally got the word derealization, depersonalization disorder. And once I got that, I pieced it back. When I was 15 and I was paralyzed, what happened was a post-traumatic stress disorder. Because sometimes your brain is so stressed with what's going on, it disassociates you from the trauma. And my brain never trusted my body to let me back in, if that makes sense. Wow. So once I pieced it all together, I was like, oh, I'm dealing with an anxiety disorder, fine. So I treated it as such. Deep breathing, meditation, a bit like stuff you probably do on your retreat, like the whole mind-body thing. And the head pressure disappeared within a week, which was like a miracle. The tinnitus didn't, but I learned to cope with it. The derealization just became normal for me because it wasn't scary anymore. I got it, right? I'm disassociated. It's fine. But I made a decision at that moment. No one else is going to suffer.
Nice.
Do you know what I mean?
Nice. I love that.
And that's what I mean. When you go through stuff like that, if you don't use that in order to serve other people... So the minute I did that, all the other decisions about, oh, I don't want to be famous, I don't want to do that, I went out the window. I thought, Trey, it's not about you anymore. I don't care.
Great.
So one of the first things I started to do, and all my friends after me when I decided to do this, I was like, right, tinnitus. The amount of people that would talk to me about tinnitus, like DJs and musicians. Because in my industry, everyone pretends to have got it, but they're all scared. Scared of everything, right? It's an insecure industry, entertainment. So they're all suffering with tinnitus. I thought, I'm going to go on TV and talk about this. And this was before mental health became trendy, especially for men. So I'd go on TV and talk about it. And at first, I did feel like a bit of an idiot. I won't lie. I felt a bit like, you know, when you described how I've been on The Apprentice, really what you've seen is authenticity.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to go and be authentic on TV in front of everyone. And the more I did it, the more I got comfortable with being in front of cameras. Because I'm like, it's not about me. I don't care. But if someone hears me talking about my journey or talking about tinnitus, talking about getting through life knowing I could jump off a building. That might help someone.
Yeah, great.
Because they may not have taken my path. I could save a life. Once you have a choice of fame and all your concerns around it and impacting potentially millions of lives, there's no choice.
No,
there.
yeah,
I don't care
that's
at
it.
that point.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. And
It's
that's
not about
how
being famous. It's about getting your message out there, serving people to the
Serving
highest
people, yeah.
level. And hey, if you get known for that, then great. You
Fine,
know,
yeah.
That's the way it
So
works.
by the time the Apprentice has come round, last year, January, I believe February.
What was it that really made you? And
My
go on The
brother's
Apprentice?
death was one of the biggest catalysts. So he died in 2020 February. He died from suspected COVID, but I would say he actually died from being a single man.
Right.
I know it might sound weird when I say that,
say
right?
that.
So single men are some of the most vulnerable people, especially single middle-aged men, because men tend to not really take care of themselves in the way women do. Men don't share, men don't open up. You know, all this toxic masculinity of man up and take it. So men don't talk much. The amount of men that I know that have passed away because they haven't taken that lump in their belly serious, or that strange sensation in their throat, or in my brother's case, the fact that he couldn't walk from there to there without not being able to breathe. Do you know what I mean? He almost died from neglect a little bit. So that was one of my things. I was like, I can't save him. But the more I talk about this, like one of the first things I did after he died is we had this thing on Clubhouse called Man Enough, where we would have talks about relationships from a man's point of view, because you don't really get that much in society. And just to have all these men that are sharing vulnerably about their lives, about, do you know what I mean, divorce and what they've been through and mental health, because us men need to do that.
Yeah.
You know, the days of us men trying to pretend that we've got it all together are gone. Women are 10 times more resilient than men.
Yeah.
10 times more.
Yeah.
And us men need to own up to that. What is it that women do that us men don't do? And I would assert one of them is just share. They talk more.
Talk, trust
other
people.
So my brother died, and I've done this Clubhouse room talking about men and what men gone through. I did a lot of personal development, which I'm sure you've done. I've done a ton of it in my life. I'd get on stage and share, guys. When my brother died, I'll tell you this quick story, and I won't blubber. Every time I talk to my brother, I end up crying my bloody eyes out. I'm not going to do it this time. But when the police found his body, God, I probably will end up bloody crying.
It's okay, we got you, man.
His body was there for a couple of days before we found him. It's so hard talking about this.
Well, I only talk if you're good. So
yeah, it's fine. I don't mind. I'm one of these men will cry
Cool.
on. I don't care what anyone thinks about me, because it's just authentic. So anyway, they found. I basically got a call that my brother had passed away. And my dad had called me. He was crying his eyes out. Nigerian men of my dad's age don't cry, so I knew it was something serious. He kept saying, "Your brother's gone." I rushed round to his flat, went up there, and the police won't let me see him. And I was so deluded in my grief and shock. I was saying, I get he's gone, but let me just speak to him before he goes. Weird, right? They're like, no, you can't see him like this. But they said to me, he's got this mail that's been sat in. It was his passport. And my brother had planned to go and record a music video in New York. But of course he died before he got a chance to even hold his passport. So after he passed away and I was doing a lot of self-development stuff, I remember getting on stage and saying, I told him the same story. I said, guys, you guys think you've got tomorrow. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. All of you people holding stuff against your parents or this one or that one, make peace with them, because you could be gone. You know, before something happens, it's a bit of a cliche, live your life now. When you lose someone like that, I didn't get to say goodbye to him. I'm like, guys, live your life now. So all of that stuff after my brother's death, I re-released Body Groove in his honor. I was doing so much stuff. It just kind of led me to this. I really need to do a product. That's why I'm really into like wellness as well. That has people look at their health and their body, just like I had to go on that journey of my own body. Like I couldn't save my brother, but maybe there's someone else I can save, either maybe through nutrition and all the stuff that you and I do, or just through the messaging of it. People hearing us talk like this, they start thinking, wait a minute, I've been ignoring this for years, or I'm going to go and do something about it. All of that culminated in last year, Jan. My wife was talking to me about, you've always talking about products and wellness and things like that. And she'd somehow seen the Apprentice auditions and said, why not? Yeah. And obviously the old me popped up straight away, thinking, it's reality TV, I'm not bloody doing it. Are you joking? Because the old me straight away is, I don't want to be on TV, I don't want to be famous. That's like my default thing before all of the ego reasons and all the other reasons. You know, I might look like an idiot, blah, blah, blah. But the more I thought about it, I thought, you know what? If I can go on TV talking about tinnitus and derealization and mental health and men, why can't I go on The Apprentice? It's not Love Island, no disrespect to Love Island, guys. But it is a business show. Yeah, it's entertainment, but still a business show.
It's a huge opportunity.
It's a huge opportunity.
There's a prize at the end.
It's a prize at the end. I love wellness. I'm passionate about it. I can talk for England. I'm authentic in what I'm talking about. I'm not just, let me go on TV. Because you wouldn't go on The Apprentice if you just want to be on TV. Maybe someone does, but I don't know. And then I get a chance to be in front of my childhood hero. It's like, I thought, do you know what, why not? Even though we were getting married that year, I'm my mum and dad's carer, they both got Parkinson's disease. There was all of these reasons why it's probably not a good idea to go on. But I thought, you know what? It feels uncomfortable. So that's exactly what I need to do. Yeah. Do you know that feeling when it's uncomfortable, you know it's exactly what you should be doing. Exactly if it's comfortable, don't do it. But if it's uncomfortable, do it. Which is why I say to people, launch that business, tell someone you love them, ask someone to marry you, go for it. If it's uncomfortable, it's probably the right thing. Yeah. And if you fail, great, because you don't fail, you learn.
So there you are.
So I was like, go for it. And I auditioned, and I thought...
Probably got through tens and tens of thousands of people.
Oh, yeah, 80,000 people, apparently.
You make it into, the final people that go on the show. People ask, what is Lord Sugar like?
Lord Sugar,
Lord Sugar, yes. What is Lord Sugar like?
He's exactly what you expect him to be.
Really? Great.
Yeah. And he's old school as well, which I like, because it's almost like, I don't know, some people might find it a bit contentious what I'm going to say, but because I'm older as well, in our days it was quite brutal, isn't it? I'm not saying he's brutal, but what I'm saying is people, that generation tells it like it is. I think people have got a bit softer now. Yeah. But he's just a straight talker.
Great.
If he likes you, he likes you. Doesn't like you, he doesn't like you. If he doesn't like you, you better figure out real quickly why not. And you better not like do things for him, but you better show the most authentic side of you. And I recognised that straight away. Not that he didn't like me, but the idea of me, he probably was not used to it. I'm the first musician that's ever been on that show in its history, in 20 odd years, in 18 series. I'm older, I was 48 when I did it. So everything said to me, like, Lord Sugar's probably going to be looking at you thinking,
what's going on?
What's going on there? Yeah. So I couldn't rely on just trying to be this cool guy because he's just not going to buy it. I don't think he'd listen to body grooves. He doesn't care about stuff like that. I had to literally rely on performing. Yeah. And that's why it was, in a way, challenging a little bit, because other people probably could rely on getting by on other things.
Is it like a pressure cooker?
Absolutely.
Week after week after week, and you're in that house, and do you have contact with the outside world? No. So it really...
You go in there, even your watch is gone. Wow. So if they're taking your watch, everything else is gone. Like your phone is the first thing gone, because you can't be Googling, you can't have any outside help. So people who watch and think, they're all fake. They're not. If I took everything from you, gave you hardly any sleep, getting you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we've got a new task, like say cheesecakes. I hate food tasks, for instance. I'm giving you a dossier. You've got 20 minutes to absorb a whole dossier about an industry you know nothing about. You can't Google, you can't phone a friend, can't ask the audience. You're going to look a bit rubbish, aren't you? Yeah. And then whilst you're there, obviously, certain things that happen that add to it, and you've got certain restrictions in terms of what you can use. But I loved it. Yeah. When you've gone through what I've gone through, and probably what you've gone through, you can relate to it. Nothing's as bad as tinnitus, derealization, paralysis.
You embraced week in, week out. You showed up. How did you find the relationship with the other contestants?
Fairly easy for me.
Good.
Because I'm a mindset coach.
Okay, great.
And because I was older.
Yeah.
Now, traditionally on that show, older people don't tend to do that well on it. I don't know why that is. I haven't analysed it why. I mean, there's probably lots of reasons. Maybe when you're a bit older, maybe you are a bit more set in your ways. You work your own way. Maybe you get irritated by younger people. Maybe the young people ostracize you. I don't know. But in my situation, being older meant that I've had enough experience with people. And if you're in entertainment, you've had the worst people to actually analyse. So I've become very good in terms of my emotional intelligence, my people intelligence. I can suss someone out. But because I'd like to think I'm a very authentic person, I wasn't all about me. I'll ask you about you. Great. So I really got to know everyone really well. I mean, it was so bad. They said to me, well, not bad, but they said to me on the audition, Tre, you're a coach. Do not coach anyone in the house. They're your competition. The minute I got in, I'm coaching everyone.
You're coaching. You can't help it. It's in your DNA. It's in you, isn't it?
People were going, they were younger than me. They were going through all sorts of stuff. Maybe something was said in the boardroom they didn't like, or a task or pressure, or they were missing a loved one. I was coaching everyone. So I think I formed a very close bond with people in there.
The thing is, you're forming a close bond, but maybe that's not the same for everyone, because it is a competition.
Yeah.
And you are trying to win. I assume everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
So does some of those relationships not get tense from time to time?
No, because a trick, and this is a trick, everyone that got that this process is a psychological process did well.
Excellent.
Everyone that thought it was just business or it was about them and their ego went.
Okay, there we go.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So I knew winning meant winning how? As part of a team. Where some people thought winning was maybe trying to impress or excel on their own. It's not good. Why? You're getting investment from one of the sharpest minds in the UK, as far as I'm concerned. I know I'm a big Lord Sugar fan, but he's one of the sharpest minds in the UK. You don't get to be a billionaire through not sussing people out. So it's not just about you winning. He's looking at you thinking, are you going to be my business partner? So some people would win and maybe be a bit arrogant with it. Or some people are obviously more maybe a bit about themselves because they hadn't learned this is a team process. With me, the team thing is by default with me anyway because I love people winning. That's by default. Even if you're my competition, I want you to be the best version of yourself.
Love it.
Partly because it's just who I am, but partly I want a real competition.
Yeah.
I don't want you to miss out on something. I want you to really come at me with everything you've got, right? So for me, I sussed a lot of that stuff out. So it almost became a pleasurable experience rather than a tense. Oh my God, they're my competition. Because I was always like, Tre, you're going to get to the final 5. Just be you. Yeah. I never had a doubt.
You knew that, right?
I knew that.
You knew, didn't you?
I knew deep down. And when I'd ask other people in the house, who do you reckon is going to get to the final 5? Hardly any of them ever said me. And the old me, the ego would have been triggered. Yeah, like, how dare you don't see me as a...
Yeah,
I just thought, fair enough. It doesn't matter. People's opinion of you means nothing. Yeah. What do you think of you and what are you willing to do in pursuit of that?
You certainly grew in the process for sure. Yeah. It was a real pleasure to watch. For you, what was one of your highlights on the show? Was it a task? Was it a certain thing that happened? What was one of your biggest highlights?
There were a few for me. I think from a task point of view, a highlight for me, well, I've got a few of them. One of the best ones for me was Formula E.
Formula E.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember when I first saw the cars, I just love cars. Like when I was going through my encyclopedia, I was a car obsessive. I was so obsessed with cars that when I was about 7 or 8, I wanted to create my own internal combustion engine. That's how much of a nerd I was. Like kids want to play with cars. I'm trying to work out how do I build an engine? And I worked out, okay, you got 4-stroke engines, 2-stroke engines. Let me make a 2-stroke engine and let me make it out of a tin can because it looks like a piston head. Like I was one of those level nerdy kids. But when I saw the cars, I was like, that's so me. And then they moved Flo and Paul over to the other team. And they were always seen as quite strong characters, really strong characters, actually. And I think in that moment, everyone thought, these guys are underdogs. They're not going to be able to win. And the minute you make me an underdog, you're in trouble.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you're in trouble. I don't think anyone realised that the minute you make me an underdog, you are in trouble. Because life has already tried to mess with me. Like, come on, I've dealt with life and death. So you want to bet against me? Now give it's pain juice, right?
Perfect.
So the minute that happened, I was like, I've got to be PM for this because no one wanted that gig. I was like, I'm all over this. But it was just, that episode, I think, showcased everything for me. Like, if you would just take one episode that showcased everything about me on The Apprentice, it had me in a leadership position, but leading, not dictating, generally leading the team. What do you think? Which is why, even in negotiation, I'm like, Rachel went forward. She's way better than me at negotiation. Put your best team forward. But some people think I'm the PM, I've got to do everything. No. I want to win as a team. Who's best in this position? You are. Do this, do that. So it showcased that, the teamwork, but it also showcased me as a leader. What do you do when life throws lemons at you? In our case, the lemons were a very bad advert. We got bad advert from our sub team, and I can always spin something into a positive way because I'm very positive. No matter how lousy everything looks, I can look at it positively. And I remember taking what I was given. Not much I could do about the logo, but I still spun it a little bit. But the worst thing we had, did you watch that one?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
You know, we had the pristine, beautiful oceans and rivers and God knows what. I was thinking, guys, we need to show these sponsors how bad things are so they can give us money. I didn't have to switch it on its head. I thought, I know. Rather than play this video at the front of the pitch, let me play it halfway through. So I played the video and I said to everyone, we're not there yet, there meaning this pristine world, but with your help and with your sponsorship on this car, maybe we can be. So it became a much more emotive thing. And that's what people saw. Everyone comes up to me and talks about Formula E. The way he did that pitch, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And it was just the ability to do that. And again, that came because of what I've gone through in my life. I became so authentic. That pitching like that was so real for me. I wasn't pretending. It was real. Like
we could see in the moment, it was like pure
passion.
And energy.
Yeah.
And you're a natural public speaker.
Yeah. But you know where that came from as well? You teach public speaking. When you publicly speak, you can't be located here where you are. You have to be with them, the audience. Everything I do now is not about me. You're nothing. Yeah. It's about them. When people come to me and say, Tre, oh my God, Body Groove, I'm like, thank you, because that song is your song, not my song. Yeah. The creativity just flew through me and my brother, flowed through us. For you, it's yours. And when you get there, it's service. So when I'm speaking to people in the audience, I'm speaking to you, like the eye contact. Moving on to the next person. It's yours. That episode had all of it. Yeah. Then, of course, you had the comedy in the boardroom when Verdi used Body Groove. And I never in my wildest dream thought I'd hear Body Groove in the boardroom of The Apprentice. I mean, if someone said one day Body Groove is going to play in the boardroom with the Apprentice. I'd be like, what is it? Is that comic relief or something? Is Pudsey the Bear sat on the side? But no, it was a real episode. It had everything in it, and of course, it had the record-breaking element, the 38.7 million, which I didn't even know happened until I watched it with my family and friends. I didn't even know it was record-breaking. So everything about that was just like, it summed up what I set out to achieve by going on that show. Do you know what I mean? To show Lord Sugar that I'm not just some random music person, some has-been kind of guy, when he saw, this guy's actually really, really good, because I'm getting good feedback. To be authentic, vulnerably so, do you know what I mean? To lead the team and to leave a lasting legacy. Because, I talk about creating a legacy that reverberates through time. That's what that is. Yeah, to have a record-breaking win, to be so passionate, to be the first musician on the show. There are lots of things that I think will reverberate through time because it was different than what most people expected. That's easily my favourite one.
100%. You have definitely will inspire many more people to go and apply to that show.
Yeah.
There's people out there now that are, say, slightly more mature. They're not in their mid-20s or early 30s. And they're like, you know what? If Tre did it, perhaps I can go and do
you know
it
that,
well.
right? Because you're like me. You like to inspire people. Do you know what breaks my heart more than anything? People who have reasons and excuse for why they can't do it. And there's so much of that. It might be age. I mean, I know people look at me and think you don't look 49, but I am 49. So how many other 50-year-olds, 49-year-olds, middle-aged people who think, oh, I'm past my best, or it's all about the kids now? No. What is the gift you've got to give to the world? Because I want it. There's only so much I can do, you can do, but it's going to be someone sat at home and think, I'm past my best. If they shake that off and go out there, they're going to serve someone and make a difference. That's what it is for me. To be that figure that inspires people, and I get it all the time on the streets out there. Everyone's like, Tre, you inspire me, and blah, blah, blah. Also, even like young black boys, for instance, who, it's like I grew up with a hero of my dad, so I was very lucky. I didn't have this sense of being black, therefore it's harder. I had it the opposite. I was like, my dad did it, I'm going to do it. There was no... But there are still people who think if they don't see someone that looks like them, and they've got a perception of being a minority, or even just being working class, like you said, it's not for me, but it is. So to be that light for them, I don't care what you think about yourself, you are great. And you don't get to play small. Because studies always show at the end of people's lives, people will regret what they didn't do, not what they did. Yeah. So I don't care what you think is possible or not. You are bloody great. You go out there and do that.
Great.
That's why your story inspires me.
And you're certainly a man on a mission, and we're going to touch on a couple of points in a minute, and we're going to talk about the importance of wellness. And obviously, we both agree that everyone should at least have a go at public speaking.
100%.
Not necessarily to get on huge stages, but to communicate, to believe in yourself, to be more powerful. I think speaking skills is something which it's changed my life, Tre. Honestly, becoming a speaker has changed my life, and I believe it's one of the most important skill sets.
I do agree,
everyone needs to learn.
And it's one of the biggest fears is public speaking.
Well, they say in America it's the people would rather die than public speak. In the UK it's about third, something like that.
Can you imagine that?
It's insane.
It's insane.
And it's just being yourself.
It's being yourself. Authentic. But also being okay with some of the physiological responses, the dry mouth, the butterflies. It's just a physiological response. So what? That's why I train a lot of people I coach is just accept it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, if your stomach's rumbling, it's just rumbling.
Don't worry.
But people give it meaning, and that little voice in their head saying, oh my God, they're going to laugh at you. That's why I believe, go out and make a fool of yourself. Get over that bit. Let go of the ego. Look stupid, look silly, practice. Then you'll get to the point how you and me are, where we're so passionate, I just don't care. You've got a message that I want.
And someone will hate about you the very thing someone else loves about you. That's the reality.
Let them hate.
So we're going to talk about your next steps and what life looks like, and what is the next thing for you. We've just had the winner announced. Did the right person win The Apprentice?
I'm going to be biased and say yes, of course, because Rachel was my favourite person to work with.
You had a good relationship with
massively,
her. You two had a real good connection.
Massive. So we were so connected that I could speak to her without actually opening my mouth. I could just give her a look, she know what I meant. Because when we worked together, I had the creative, passionate side locked down. She had a lot of the negotiable, more corporate side locked down. We were formidable. You couldn't beat us. And even when teams beat us, they might have beat the other half, i.e. the sub-team, but not us. Like Budapest is an example of that. Our tour was better than the other teams, but our sales let us down. So Rachel, for me, is someone that I just worked with great. But what I loved about Rachel more than probably anyone else is that girl is almost too humble. I spotted her on, I think it was task 2, and I remember her, the briefcase, the sub-team leader briefcase, and I laughed at her, and she thought I was laughing at her because I thought she was rubbish. But I laughed at her because I thought if she is in that position, Felucia, I believe, was the leader of the team entirely. I looked at us boys, and us boys would be laughing and joking and blah, blah, blah. I thought, we're screwed. I just noticed Rachel from literally task 2. Yeah.
On it.
And because she didn't blow her own trumpet, people like that are more dangerous.
I got to say, like, she was almost like unnoticeable, but
True.
noticeable throughout the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
She was almost like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And then she was just there.
But do you not notice
and
how
she did so well?
Do you notice that in life, people like that almost always are the best?
Yeah.
They always say empty vessels make the loudest noises, right? So the people that are always giving it the big and I'm this, I'm that, normally they're not. But the quiet ones, but they've got this poise about them, those are the ones to watch. Because those ones will annihilate you because they just focus. And she's one of the most focused people I've ever met in my life. She was so focused. She was a joy to work with. So to answer your question, absolutely, do I think the right person won? But Phil is also a worthy runner-up, 100%.
Well, I think he made it into the final. No one else has made it in the final that had been in a losing team so much.
Yeah,
so I think something like that, 9 times.
9 times,
And then he almost goes and wins it. But actually, he was very good in almost all of his tasks as well.
Yeah. I would say, other than me...
Why just ask me this. Why in that scenario, why did teams lose their tasks? Was there a common thing happening every week as to why people were losing?
I was going to say that something about Phil is his level of resilience was similar to me.
Okay.
And I think the reason why some teams were losing was, I think, people kind of taking the eye off the ball in terms of winning as a team, playing as a team. People would kind of go off and try and do their own thing, and they weren't focused as a team. I mean, a good example of that is Noor, bless her.
Yeah.
Although in her defence, there was some stuff that you didn't see. So Lord Sugar said, Noor's going to be PM and you can't help her. And I think Noor interpreted that as, I've got to shine on my own. Whereas I would have interpreted that as, if we win as a team, we're all good. So I think that's one of the things. And that's why I think you saw some of the more slightly older people maybe do well, slightly mature people do well, you know. The people sort of north of 30 tended to do better because there was that sense of getting the psychological nature of it as well as the business side and therefore the team side. So even Phil, when he lost, he was never necessarily responsible for the failure of the task, and he was so resilient. He was good at fighting his corner. So I think that's what it was why people lost. They just took their eye off the ball.
It definitely seems like, and I'm sure you can confirm, a brutal process.
It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Well, other than bloody surviving some of the conditions I have, but in terms of like life task, it's the hardest thing I've ever done, because as resilient as I am, you're still up against it. Once you go into a process, everything that's comfortable for you is gone. Like, for instance, tinnitus hasn't bothered me for years, but on those first couple of days in Scotland, I couldn't sleep. I didn't sleep for about 5 days because suddenly I'm out of my comfort zone, don't have my phone, can't speak to my fiance. I'm in a quiet room in a quiet country, like, you know, Scottish kind of Highlands, dead silent compared to living in the centre of London. So suddenly my tinnitus is screaming. I've got all these thoughts of, why are you here, Tre? What if you go home first? People are going to laugh at you. The psychological test of that is definitely the hardest thing I've ever done. But at the same time, I relish it. And I think that's probably what made me so formidable as a contestant, is because I relished it so much. Which for some people, it was their first taste of that, or they'd never had that level of intensity. Whereas I'm like, my whole life is geared me up towards this.
Up to that level, yeah.
Because I've gone through all of this stuff already. Do you know what I mean?
Great.
But yeah, I think, the losing came from people not being that psychologically ready. Some of it was a little bit of luck. But I do think what you saw in the final 5 was the best.
Okay,
the best, I would probably say.
Yeah.
And I know some people think, Phil, and people have got stuff to say about Phil, but Phil still has a great business, and you don't build a business like that if you haven't got a...
Success dictates opportunity.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, everyone of you deserve to be there. So,
Yeah.
you've been on The Apprentice. You're now here at the Dealmaker podcast.
Yes!
You're
I
on
love this setup that you've got here, by the way,
man,
dude.
You know what, man?
I'm like on a proper set. I love this.
I'll be honest, I've had my podcast, 4 years now, and it's been a gig, and it's been great. And sometimes you don't know who's listening. And I'll be honest, sometimes I'm like, am I doing the right thing? I've got to do that podcast, or I've got to provide that bit of content. And then I'm at one of my events and someone says, your podcast has changed my life. And I'm like, thank you. I realise why I do what I do. So to have someone like you on the show, what's next for Tre? What's your plans for the next 1 or 2 years? What do you want to do? What's your message? And also, once you do that, could you just share people tuning into there, people that want to be property investors, entrepreneurs, they want to get to that next level. Could you just share some final thoughts, 1 or 2 tips? Would be
Absolutely.
incredible, please.
So what's next for me is a couple of things. So I'm generally in 3 areas. It's either sort of wellness coaching, I'm in music, and I'm in property like yourself. So from a property point of view, I was just chatting to you earlier about my dad's situation. So he's got this portfolio which has no mortgage, is pretty substantial. So I'm looking forward to rejigging all of that, because when you've got money that's in a bank or money that's locked up in property that's not working for you, it's dead. And you and I know money should be working. At the very least, you should be making a little bit more than inflation. And I'm talking about real inflation, not the, what is it now, 3.5%, whatever it might be. I think it's come down. You and I know real inflation is somewhere around 10% or more
12,
when you look at things we
13%.
buy every day. So trying to beat that inflation. So I'm excited about that. We're going to be reinvesting in property, potentially creating a property fund as well, which is a good thing to do. So you've got a bigger pot to invest in, and just diversifying. You know, I've got a couple of rent to rents, all that sort of stuff, and there's so much more property strategies than the traditional stuff, because all of us in my family, we're traditional landlords, but there's a lot of exciting stuff out there. So doing that on the one side with the family, which is good. From the kind of wellness coaching point of view, definitely looking forward to launching a product. And what's good about being in the final 5, people think it's just grueling and you're getting a smashing from the interviews. But what you're getting is one of the best educations that money can buy, really. You got 4 of the greatest minds telling you, your business plan is crap and let me tell you why. So you can then come out and pivot a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even based on that feedback, there's lots of different things that I'm looking at doing. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but that's exciting as well, because I love things like nutrition and wellness. I mean, I didn't share, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2017. And I remember saying to the doctor at the time, I was actually in the hospital crying my eyes out. I called one of my best friends, Sarah Jane. She's like a well-known broadcaster, who she then called up the hospital, giving them a bollocks, because they were talking about operating me. I only went in there like randomly. It was Valentine's Day. Like, what a horrible bloody Valentine's Day. And I remember calling my Sarah, like, Sarah, I can't cope with this. Anyway, I said to the doctors, the next time you test me, you won't find any sign of inflammation, because I had an inflamed ileum, which is part of your intestine. So I literally went into nutrition, like changed my gut flora. I did, sickening amount of work on my nutrition and gut flora and all that sort of stuff. And I reversed it, which is why I know that wellness and things like functional shots work. Because I'm not a believer in pharmaceuticals. You can imagine I've tried every one of them on my wellness journey. So that's something I'm really passionate about. Now it's just looking at how I deliver it. Whether it's functional shot powder, all these other different ways of delivering it. So that's another thing I'm excited about. And then for me, also in the coaching space, everyone keeps asking me, Tre, how are you so resilient on that program? Please teach me. Well, the number one thing is, Tre, how do you speak so eloquently, so passionately, publicly, like what you do? So I want to create an online platform that teaches this stuff. Because people say to me, Tre, you're so charismatic. And I'm like, I was a sick kid who had no friends. The charisma is something you know what I mean? You can learn some of this. How? By being authentic. Once you lean into your authenticity and be yourself authentically, charisma flows, because people find it easy to be with you because you're just being real. And you can teach some of that skill, right? So that's another thing I'm doing. So just so much exciting stuff, from property to wellness.
Great.
Not so much music anymore, but I still release music, but that's more of a bit of a hobby now rather than my main focus.
Great. Well, it sounds like you're going to be one busy guy. It sounds like you've got a real good plan ahead of you. You're going to do even better than what you're already doing. I know that, and I'm
so
really
excited.
I'm really pleased that we've connected. You know, there's a lot of synergy between us as well. Final message for people tuning in to inspire them and motivate them to change, please.
Guys, I would say one thing, and you heard me ask you earlier, you must find out what your why is, your purpose, your raison d'etre, whatever you call it. You must get a sense of why. That my new why is definitely my brother's death. I mean, I've always had whys my whole life, but now more than anything, my brother's death has taught me we don't have tomorrow. It's not guaranteed. So you must get present to your why. Why do you want to do it? Do you know, is it for your family? Is it for yourself? Is it for your kids? Your why has to be stronger than your fear. The fear is always going to be there. The fear of running out of money, being laughed at. It's not going to work. I can't leave my 9-to-5 job. I can't do this, or I can't afford your course. All that fear is nonsense. What is your purpose? And let that be strong. Once you've got it, find someone like yourself or like me, your mentors. There's a ton of help out there that we didn't have when we were young. Find someone good, someone can come and do one of your courses.
Yeah.
That way they don't have to make mistakes. Do what you've done.
Yeah.
You want to make it in property? Follow one of your strategies. You want to make it in self-development or coaching? Hey, come to me. I'll teach you how to be resilient and strong. So find your why, find the partner to help you do it, and start today.
Love it. Start today. That's
Start
a great
today.
message. Well, Tre, thank you so much.
Dude, thank you so much.
We'll be doing this again for sure.
100%.
We'll be doing it
So
again
up
for
for it.
sure. Wow, amazing words of wisdom. Just what a lovely, genuine individual, super successful, wants to go to that next level. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast. I really want to get my message out there to millions of people. I'm on a mission to help 1 billion people make, manage and multiply their money. So if you could please share this podcast, it means the algorithm's going to pick it up. It's going to get in front of more people, and Tre and myself and you, we can go and make this world a better place. Remember, you are also a deal maker. If I can do it, you can do it, and I'll see you on the next episode.